gotta shut that down. Mm. Okay,
So what are you gonna do to shut that down?
I already shut it down.
The sound?
Um. Oh, I guess, yeah, I guess I could do the sound instead of just shutting it down. That would work. I know I'm a dork.
No, you're just doing something you haven't done before. Um, Living and learning. That's what we're all doing as we go through life. We did instinctively get to breathe, learn how to do that. Sometimes you get smacked to get you started. Maybe this is what we're doing. We're getting smacked.
Hard.
So we've made plans, and then life happens anyway, despite those plans. Life is what happens while you're making other plans. So we're doing this live stream so that people can ask questions directly to me, on theory that you want to know something. One of the questions that was asked in a comment, which we asked people if they would do that, was using mobile homes as an investment. And of course, even first of all, to me, investment is even time. So you invest your time in something. Say you invest your time in raising your children. There's quite a bit more than that. You invest your time in friends. You invest your time in getting a home, purchasing a home, saving for a home. So time is part of that investment. Are mobile homes worth the investment? So I want to say a simple question deserves a simple answer, and that would be yes. Now the lengthy answer to that. First of all, to put in perspective, housing right now, I think the median house price is $480, $490 in the United States. It's crazy high. And the median house price in Arkansas, which is just a few miles south of here, is 300, something like that. A new mobile home, single wide, is for this wider is 16 wide by 60, 70 is $60,000 new. Probably doesn't include delivering it, doesn't include the utilities for sure, doesn't include the land. So if you were going to put it in a mobile home park, you'd have to have the utilities hooked up. You'd have to, which is water, sewer, electric, phones. And if you want to have a deck, steps, something, you have to have all those things. And then they think they do have a 14 wide by 50 for 50,000, and that's at Clayton Homes. I'm going by memory. So that's what a new home is. Obviously, there's math in that. Can you afford it? Can you afford what it's going to cost for the land, the sewer? If you're buying land and improving it, the electric, the poles to it, the water supply, the meter, all those things have to be in that math. Now, that's if you're buying a new one. Then you have to get the financing, and depending on who you use, that equates into your monthly payments and everything, and that includes relationships. Everything has maintenance, so you need to remember that you're going to have maintenance along the way also. Just like with your car, it's like, oh, I got to change the tires every so often, I got to change the oil, there's going to be things break. Even though it's only a year old, those things need to be figured out in your investment that you're possibly going to do. And if you start on that way without planning, those things are going to come up anyway. So that's your investment in the situation between a mobile home park, which a lot of mobile home parks get fussy and say, well, we don't want anything less than a 2,000. or we don't have any spaces, or you just got to look a certain way, and you can't have this and you can't have that. So, if knowing that in this area, mobile home spaces are around $400 a month, and they're sort of like a HOA. They can tell you, you got to mow your grass, or we're going to mow it for you. Some do that, charge you $75 or something to mow your little bit of grass. If you have too many cars, if you don't maintain it paint wise, things like that. I'm saying too much. Now, what I have heard is they go as high as $800 a month. Not in this area, not yet. I think there's an RV park that's at 800. It's outside of Springdale. It's really nice. It's right near the lake, right on the lake, sort of. Its property connects to the lake. So that's really an odd and high price. But that would be part of your investment. What you're going to pay for lot rent, what you're going to pay for water, if they don't have that included, your electricity, which most likely will not be included. So can you live there with all those prices? So the price of the mobile home, 400, 500, let's say. And then you're going to have utilities, say try to get those included. So you're going to have all that math. And then it's going to be the lot rent added to it. So you're now at 800 to 1,000. May not be what you want to do. You have to decide. Now, rent in this area, say Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, it's $1,200 for a small house, $950 for a one-bedroom apartment. Yes, there are exceptions to that where you got to fix it up and you can get it cheaper. So is that a good choice? That's going to be up to you deciding on your budget, your / investment. A lot of people have chosen, as a matter of fact, I know of a company that owns 3 mobile home parks in this area. I think they have hundreds of mobile home parks, but they're on the penny stock, and they're a huge company. What they do is they sell new mobile homes to people that are on their lots. Now, those mobile homes, you're not going to be able to move them very easily. I haven't seen any move. They may not allow you to do it until you got it paid for. So now you're sitting there, and you're going to be making payments to them. And if you don't, then they're going to own the lot and the house, and back to selling it again. That is something that I've seen more than one mobile home park owner do. Instead of taking on the responsibility, now we're going to talk about a used home. That mobile home park owner would say, I don't rent, but I can owner finance this mobile home to you. That means you take on the responsibilities of the maintenance and the repairs. And that ends up being a better choice for them because they don't have to deal with any kind of repairs. Now, that is just somebody who's thinking about buying a new home, and that would certainly be some investment. You have to have down payment. You would have to have the ability to pay for the utility hookups. Maybe that could be included in the financing, but that you're going to pay on that for 30 years, 20 years, 15. You're going to be paying on that. So you might want to see if you can pay for that up front, however much it's going to be. You never know. It's a kind of a wild card until you get it, that place that you're going to go to. Now, if you're going to buy land used, so you take your new home and you're going to go to property. Now you got to deal with having the septic tank put in, the water, all the things we talked about. And what you might consider is buying a place that already has all those things, but the house fell down or it's not very good. It's in terrible shape. Nobody wants it. Oh, you're going to have to tear down that mobile home or that old home. Perhaps that place already has electricity, most likely. already has water, most likely, maybe a well, already has a septic. You'll need to check that. So I tell my boys a lot of times what they need to do, plan for the future. My boys are young, 23, is that they should look into finding an old mobile home that's in bad shape and maybe purchase that land with all that, 1 acre, quarter acre, not likely to be quarter acre, but say half acre out in the country, even out in the woods, and it has all the utilities already there. But people don't. They like, oh, that's a piece of junk house there, but yeah, but the utilities are there. That could be $12,000 for the septic tank. It could be $4,000 or $5,000 for the water, for the meter and the getting the water line there. You may have to pay for a pole or two to get to where your setup is. You may have to have the land leveled. All that many thousands of dollars has already been done. All you got to do is, if you don't want to fix that mobile home, is remove it and then move your new mobile home there. Now we're into, quite often you can get that property cheaper because nobody wants to deal with that mobile home, that ramshackle mobile home or falling down house, maybe even a burnt house. I know I had a company pay me go 4 hours away to Little Rock to help set up a brand new double wide, and the house had burned down, and they were using the utilities off of that. So it was a big house. It was like 80 plus. I think it was one of those rare 90-foot long double wides. So that's a good example. That house had all the utilities, and I know it had a septic tank. That's another story, because I fell into that septic tank. Didn't know it was there. Nobody did. I was backing up the truck, and bulldozer had been running over the top of it. And whenever I walked over, it just fell through. So I was like, the ground was up here. The sewer was less than knee deep. So that's another story. Anyway, the septic tank was there. The water was there, the electricity was there. They were able to buy that property. The house was, they used a bulldozer to clear it off, and that's probably when they broke the top of the septic tank. Now, you could find that. You could find some other property. Say you had an old house that had been dilapidated for quite a while, but you thinking, hey, I could rebuild it. I'm going to move my mobile home right there next to it, and I'll rebuild it as I get time. That would be what you would use, that small mobile home on that property. You would have to get permission from whatever county to do that, maybe a city. Most cities are not very cooperative. Now, that is using a new mobile home to live in until you can fix that home. But now you have the utilities already there, the electric, the water, the sewer. That might be something you could do in your math. Now let's go to used mobile homes. And again, we'll start with, as a individual to live in. That would be the motive, to invest in a mobile home. A lot of times people talk bad about mobile homes because they have not had any experience with them. They don't know anything about how to maintain them. They don't know what to look for if it's bad. All they've heard is bad news, and quite often they're abused, because a lot of people who rent or buy mobile homes are on the lower end of the spectrum. And that's where you need to consider to start. To get into a $300,000 house, how much of a down payment are you going to have? You can do that math. To get into a $60,000 piece of property with say a $10,000 mobile home, $70,000 as opposed to $300,000. Of course, you have to get the financing. Now, what will you be looking for in order for it to be considered a good investment? When you when you pull up to the mobile home, if it has metal siding, you will look for wrinkles in the siding. If you see that wrinkle quite often, that means it either had a hard time coming into that property or it is out of level, most likely out of level. So you'll have to have somebody re-level it. That's one of the first things you'll want to do before you start fixing the inside of the house, repairing ceilings and whatever. So look for those wrinkles on a metal sided, say, think either aluminum or tin covered mobile home. You also would look and notice if the roof has got a whole bunch of rust on it. Most likely you've got some maintenance to do around the outside edges and the penetrations going through the roof. That has a cost. You can do it yourself. There's plenty of videos, including the ones that I have, on how to fix those things. You can re-level the house yourself. I have videos on how to do that, but if you don't feel confident, you shouldn't do it. Now, when you go inside the house, notice if the door is about to fall off, because that door is probably going to cost you $500 to buy it, and to buy the storm door if you're going to put it on there. Say $250 if you put a house type door, and that'll be about the same cost as a regular mobile home door, which will always look like a mobile home door. Why not go to a house type door? You just got to be doing that. Now, that's $250 and you're doing it. If you're going to hire somebody, you're looking at another $250 or more. When you step in that door, kind of put your weight on right beside the door and step over to the corners of the door. And if the floor is soft there, that means that floor is going to have to be replaced. The next places that you look for soft areas is right below the windows on the inside of the house. Right below the windows. And they'll be in the living room particularly. And in the bedrooms, you'll look there too, right below the window. Next place you're going to be looking for is in the kitchen. Is it soft? Is it humped up? That floor can cost you the money. Now, not only do you have the floor covering, you've got to replace the floor underneath. And it's a bad investment to overlay floors of a mobile home. The majority of mobile homes, until just recently, say the last 10, 15 years, are done with particle board. So when that gets wet, it will never stop deteriorating. You can put plywood over top of it, and that will continue to deteriorate. So brace in your mind, I'm going to have to cut out the particle board and put in regular plywood in that area. And that means after that, you'll do floor leveler around to hide the edges, and you'll do floor covering and then trim after that. So you'll be removing those things. Then you're looking for soft floors in find out where the water heater is, see if it's soft around that water heater. And you want to also check in the bathrooms, providing there's two. If there's one, you're checking in the bathroom for soft areas around the toilet, around the bathtub, or in front of the sink. If you have a humped up floor and it's roller coastering, invariably you're going to need to replace that particle board. That's what you're going to have to do. You can consider that minimum $10 a square foot. Minimum. That's if you're doing it. Maybe you could do it a little bit less, but you're going to need to put it in your head that's what you're going to spend to get floor covering on it and buy the plywood and go get the plywood and all that, bring it back and put in 2x around the edges, and there'll be videos that I have that shows you how to do that. If there's holes in the walls, you're going to have to fix that. It's not 1/2 inch drywall, it's 3/8 drywall. If there are broken windows, you're going to have to look for that. Quite often, if you see a mirror on a wall, say a hallway, there's a mirror on the wall, just like, why is that mirror there? Invariably, there will be a hole that they covered up with that mirror. Look at the doors. See if they're coming apart at the bottom or they're all busted around the doorknob. Look at the top now you're going to look up at the ceiling. Do you see stains along the wall where the ceiling and the wall meet? So if you do, that means the roof has been leaking. Not necessarily right where you see that stain. There quite often is plastic that runs underneath whatever ceiling. Say there's a cardboard like paper ceiling, and there's all kinds of some drywall. The newer ones have drywall, sort of like a house, but there will be a plastic vapor barrier to hold the blown insulation in before they do that. So that plastic can catch water in one place, roll across that and pool, and then drip through another place, even through a light fixture. So it's again, you're looking for stains on the ceiling. And that generally means there's something that's got to be fixed on the roof, which is the second thing you need to fix if if you have a metal roof or a shingle roof that has leaking. You need to get up there and do that. Re-level first, then fix your roof. So those are things you're going to have to do. Next thing you want to look for is if the outlets are coming out of the walls. Seems like not a big deal. You can put tape on it and hold it to the drywall. I'm telling you, it will. You'll have to spend the money, pay an electrician to put in a cut-in box. That will be an expense. Look and see how the air conditioner is. If it has one, does it have window units? Can you deal with window units? This is for things that people are looking to move into. This is what I'm talking about. If you want to invest your money and your time into this used mobile home, does it have these issues? One thing that a lot of people have misunderstood is they bought a house and they can't understand why the floors are buckling up in the living room. There's no water there. Well, I can give you two scenarios why that's happening. One is a water line going from the kitchen to the bathroom has been chewed on by a mouse, and it sprays water into the bottom of that floor, wrecks the floor, or just even holds the water down the bottom of that plastic barrier. If it does, it just holds the moisture there, and that bottom of that particle board starts warping up. Another one would be, and this is something you need to check, is because a house has skirting on it, which that's another one you want to look at, is you need skirting. And I recommend a metal roofing or metal building type metal, and put a skirting around it to keep animals out and to keep the cold weather from changing the feel of the underneath of the house. When you look underneath this home, which you're going to do with a light, look and see if the insulation's down all over the place. You're going to have to spend the money to put that insulation in and protect that mobile home floor, which I was just talking about. This mice might chew on a water line. Now I'm going to talk to you about moisture coming from the ground hitting the bottom of the particle board. If it doesn't have the insulation, you're going to need to put the insulation in. When you put it in, you want to put some kind of a vapor barrier. I've been using house wrap from Lowe's. The DuPont stuff is a bit more fragile, even though it's more expensive. The Lowe's stuff has weave and it's fiberglass. It'll hold up. You can roll a piece of. I've got a video on how to do that. So you'll need to insulate all that. And that'll cause your floors to be warmer too. It'll keep your pipes from freezing as much, because the mobile home is made to have that sagged area in the middle between the frames to protect, to have the heat from the vents that run from one end to the other, protect the pipes that are inside the same area that's sagging down. So all that heat will kind of radiate out and protect those pipes. If the insulation's not there, it's not doing that. So that's one of the things you're going to be looking for. You want to, you're probably going to end up wanting to paint the rooms the color you want. You want to look and see if there's a crack in the bathtub, around the drain, or anywhere else. Is there a crack in it? If there's a crack in the bathtub, or sometimes in the shower, it doesn't happen much in the shower, but it does in the bathtub, that means that there has been a water leak of some kind, either from underneath, say, it's possible that you didn't have the insulation in there and they got to the bottom of the particle board underneath that tub, and now when you step on that tub, it cracks because it had nothing to support. The tub supports itself by a big old piece of foam underneath it that's made to be level with the floor, and carries the weight of the floor. It will not sit by itself. If there's no particle board underneath that when you step on that tub, if you weigh more than 120 pounds, even if then, you're going to crack the tub. So that's what you're looking for. When you go in there, you're going to look to see if the tub is cracked. If it is, you're going to have to replace the tub, fix the floor, and replace the tub surrounds. Another thing to look at is in the kitchen and in the bathroom sinks, underneath the sinks. Look and see what's left of the cabinets. If it's just totally rotted from people letting it leak for a long time, then most likely you're going to be looking at some point, replacing the cabinets in that area. It's possible that you can patch them together, but most of the time, mobile home cabinets, if you're looking at them, if it's by the sink or by the stove or something like that, water came over the top of the edge of the cabinet and it got onto the edge of the cabinet doors, you'll see them swelled up, and that fake paper wood grain will be showing it's not wood, it's particle board or chipboard. So those are things you're going to be looking for. So you actually understand how much money you're going to spend on that home. Now, can you get a mobile home really, really cheap? Yes. This would apply to the next two categories that I'm going to talk to you about investing in. I have people call me quite often and want to give me mobile homes. I just don't have a place to put them. And a lot of them won't move. Now, if you're going to be the person that's going to live in this mobile home and it has masonite siding, which is like a laminated paper siding, it has to be maintained. It can last 40 years. I know I've seen it, but you have to maintain every seam, every nail, and where the trim around the windows and everything has to be sealed up and caulked regularly, like every couple, 3 years. Caulk it, seal it. If you don't, and most people don't even think about it, they keep a fantastic home, and the water comes down, gets on the edge of that masonite edge, and it soaks into that paper fake plywood. It soaks into the 2x6 that runs and connects all the floor joists. That's called a ridge beam. That will rot out, and then that home will not pull down the road without you rebuilding all the floor joists, edges, and that ridge beam being replaced. That means you have to cut the siding, and sometimes you'll see the mobile home, it'll have a section of it cut out kind of randomly, and it'll have 2 foot up of a different type of material than what is actually the house is made from, and usually a different color. So that means you may not be able to move that mobile home if you bought it from somebody else or somebody gave it to you. You need to look at that. You need to look and see if the frame is bent. You need to look and see if there is a tongue. You need to look and see if there are axles if you're going to move that home. If you're not going to move it, you don't care. The frame is there, you know, it could possibly affect you a little bit on re-level, but you can deal with it. You're not going to be able to deal with it very easily if you don't have a tongue. You're going to have to go get a tongue. If you don't have axles, you're going to have to go get the axles and the wheels. That's if you're going to buy one to live in yourself. You can then start working on that home when you buy it as you can afford it. You can make a bigger deck. You can make your carport next to it. You can do fantastic things with that mobile home. I remember a home that I did near the lake. It was on a really steep piece of property. It was a small mobile home that had an addition on it. Had been there probably since the late 60s, maybe early 70s, and they kept adding on to it and adding on to it. It was really old home, say 60s home, and it had the paneling everywhere. So we went to look at it. I slipped, my foot went through the floor a couple places. I was with them. They were having problems too. They were trying to. I was like, "Hey, be careful this," and then I stepped her. I didn't fall dramatically. Maybe that would have been the thing to do, show some humility and actually do the things they were doing. They were falling through the floor. They inherited this house, and everybody told them you couldn't fix it. You need to just tear it down. Well, guess what? The county was not going to let anybody build on that property, and the neighbor knew that. And the neighbor was offering to buy the land for $10,000 because it was right next to his, and you literally had to share a driveway with him to get to it. It is exceptionally steep property. So you'd have to build a very expensive home. So these people didn't have that much money, and they wanted to have a vacation home because it was an imaginary beautiful thing. And everybody was saying, no, you couldn't, you got to tear it down. Well, we went through that home, every bit of it, and it turned into a beautiful place. So I'm telling you, and I don't think they spent, $20,000. I'm pretty sure they were getting out of their inheritance money. But they had a vacation home, and they could actually live there. They had kids. That was so tight of a driveway in that I had to pull down in there, unhook from the trailer, pull the truck around because I would have to jackknife the trailer into the truck, and then take a chain, hook onto the trailer and spin it around, and then hook back onto the trailer and then pull forwards. That's how tight it was down there. You had a hard time turning the vehicle around. So, but it had a fantastic view of the lake. That's a good example. They were trying to say you couldn't do anything with it. It's going to cost you a ton of money to get all that stuff hauled off, and we end up fixing it. That's what I'm trying to tell you, that you can do those things and make it at your pace. As long as you can find a room or two that you can live in, a bathroom, and how you have your utilities, you can fix it up at your pace. That's if you're wanting to live in it. Double wides have their specific little problems, but as a rule, everything I've just told you, you're going to be looking for those issues. Water leaks. You're going to be looking for trim in the middle that's coming down. Don't mean that the house is coming down. It just means the trim was fastened on as quickly as possible for that person that got paid $400 to trim it out, to trim all the doorways and all the way down through the living room. Don't worry about it that it's got the middle hanging down, the trim there. That's not actually what's important. That's just covering up the two pieces that are there, the two halves. Okay, so hopefully I've given you enough information to understand there is math in all of it. What your payments are going to be, what your expenses are going to be, and you really ought to think about your relationship with whoever you're with. If it's not a good relationship, if you're not if you don't think you can handle it, that can easily cause your divorce or your relationship to end. So you need to think about that. Talk it over really good. Don't be pushing somebody into something they don't want to do. But it is a good choice because you could probably get into a piece of land, a small piece of land out in the country, and a mobile home for $20,000 that has all the utilities on it. I promise you, the land and utilities are worth more than that. And people ignore that. It's a really good investment for a very young couple if they can hang in there and stick together through the thick and thin, and each one understand their strengths and weaknesses and get through that. Now, what would that house be worth 4 or 5 years down the road if you fixed it up? It could be worth, I've seen them go for 140, 150 more. Built a building next door for the garage. Now you want to be careful. One of the things in Arkansas is like if you have a separate building, that's a separate thing to charge for taxes. Maybe you ought to consider having it connected to, an addition. And that's a whole nother discussion about additions and everything. Think about that. But I've seen houses that mobile homes that don't look anything like a mobile home. I've seen it where they took the roof off and turn it the roof into a architectural design with windows, skylight type windows in the top. Didn't look anything like a mobile home. That is up to you to do as you can afford it. It doesn't have to be right away. Now, that's one category where you look to buy. And you're going to live in it. The next category, you're going to invest your money to buy the house to rent it. I'm well aware of what it happens when you rent. I'm going to explain to you the same things. What are you going to be able to rent that house for in that area? It is a mathematical equation. Are you going to be able to tie up $20,000 in it? Are you going to do your work yourself? How much property is with it? And how much is that property going to grow in value as time passes? So replacement value is what we talked about. A new home is anywhere from 50 to 60,000, and then it goes from there. Double wides can go 250 more. They have some really nice double wides now, but that's not including the land. I will tell you this: new mobile homes sell more when interest rates are higher. That is because of a mathematical equation of the square footage that you're getting for what price. And you're going to get more from a mobile home square footage, and you can go over and talk about it with the finance person. But you're not going to have the same quality. Now, when interest rates are lower, the margin is only 100 or 2 different. But when you have in the 80s, I think it was up to 17, 18, 19% interest. It can make a big difference, 50, 60,000, 75,000 or more. That can make a big difference in your payments. That from a double wide to a brick home. When the interest rates are low, it's so small a difference that you're going to go to the home. Now, the guy who is looking to rent, you've got to do the math. How much is it going to cost me to fix this thing? Am I going to do the work myself, or am I going to hire somebody to do it? Do I know somebody, in my area that can do it? I can tell you this, from my experience, when you are fixing this home to rent, you do not want to put carpet in it. I know there's going to be somebody that disagrees with that. The reason I say that is because people invariably spill things. People get that carpet stained and dirty in a hurry. Yeah, and it will be lower income people generally that will rent from you. So you will have to be discerning. You can try to do it with credit checks, but I promise you, there's plenty of people that have good credit that do not live very well. You can do it by feel, but if you're like me, I could tend to feel bad for women that are having a hard time, and if they cry, I end up being like, oh, I'll try to help you. Try not to deal with that. What you need to deal with is what kind of renter will this person be. Maybe you might consider, after you fix it, I'm going to owner finance it. They literally have to have some investment, so they would have a down payment, and they would be responsible for the repairs. You would have some kind of agreement, hey, you can't haul a whole bunch of cars onto this property without talking to me, that kind of thing. You can't have a big stack of garbage, that kind of thing. So I'm going to tell you that you're going to do things inside that house that are going to be durable, not carpet. You're not going to provide, I'm going to suggest this, you can do what you want, You're not going to provide the refrigerator, the washer and dryer, because now you got to maintain those.
Still.
Your air conditioner, window units. Um, you're gonna, you have to decide which. Is it easier just to replace a window unit in a room, or replace the air conditioning setup itself? That can be a 4 or 5 thousand right now for a mobile home. That's on the cheap side, I believe. So, if you're renting, who are you renting to, and how much is that rent going to be? There's the money that you're looking at. How much you're going to get from that to, as opposed to what you're going to spend on it. So if you spend 60,000 buying the property and the mobile home, you can get that money back, but you need to build it so that it's tough. I've gotten to the point where I don't put drywall back into those walls whenever the drywall gets tore up. I put OSB, like just under a half-inch plywood, and I finish it just like drywall. And that way, when they go to kick the wall or punch it with their fist, it survives and their fist breaks or their foot breaks. So that's some of the things I'm telling you need to do. All the things I said about looking for in a mobile home, the windows, the doors, the floors, the ceilings, that's what you're going to have to look at as an investment. If you're going to buy that mobile home, don't forget about the utilities, and don't forget about the land. Don't forget about all those things that add to the value and looks really bad as a mobile home. I promise you that mobile home can look better. As a renter, you're looking to get into a home that you can afford. And I am telling you, inflation is eating up people's income, and they are going to look for rentals that are affordable. Like in my area, 5-6 years ago, 700-800 is what you're going to get for a mobile home. It's not that anymore. You're getting 1,100, 1,200 if it has a decent neighborhood and it has a yard. That's not unusual. So, I mean, I have different math maybe than somebody that's in the country in Kansas or Wyoming. That's the math you've got to do. Can it still be a good thing to just rent? Absolutely. But you need to find good renters. That's probably half the problem. Is a bad rental person will come to you and talk to you about how the terrible situation they have, and they got no references because the people before were just jerks and they kicked them out. Well, there's a good example. You need to follow your first instincts when it comes to renters. Renters can tear those houses up, but can you make it bulletproof? Yeah, you can. You can make it pretty tough. The cabinets will probably end up having to be replaced eventually, just because this doesn't hold up to rentals, the rental type people. The attitude of renters generally is, it's not my property, I don't care. If they're not paying for the water, they don't care if the water leaks. They don't care if the sink is leaking, as long as they can move on. That's not my problem. That's not all renters. I'm just saying that's how you need to think about it. When it comes to renters, I personally don't rent by lease. I have a week-to-week rental agreement. That is, if you want to go, you can go. And if I want you to go, you will go. So it's week to week. You can pay by the month, but it's week to week. So if you start selling drugs, or you start not wanting to work anymore, I know. If you have a divorce and you kick your husband out, or you kick your guy out, or you kick your girl out, and you can't pay rent because you're too drunk or too high, whatever, I know. You might consider that if you're renting. Get to know those people and see if you can't be the best renters I've seen and it really, in my experience, it is single older women. I don't think HUD housing is good because I've had a lot of bad experiences. Usually HUD housing, guaranteed rent, you have to pass inspection, which you can do in a mobile home. But the problem with a lot of the HUD people, and it's usually like a single woman with a grandchild that she's raising, as soon as the inspector leaves and they sign the paperwork, hey, you're in, here comes this son, daughter, and that person ends up being the pariah of the whole neighborhood, the person who steals and gets in fights and feuds and fusses with everybody. I had a lot of bad experiences with HUD.
Let's see. I'm in northern Idaho, no, Ohio. I recently purchased a mobile home park. I'm remodeling a few of them now and need to install heat only. What do you think about wall hung gas vented heaters?
That's the best way to go for heat and then particularly for when you lose electricity in one area. Say, and Texas just went through a bunch of that. That means that you got heat, even if you have no electricity. I've done that in every rental I have. Invariably the problem is they don't always want to fill the propane tank. So I'm thinking about just going ahead and put the propane tank in it and just charging them per the month or per the week, whatever. I'd end up
Subletting.
thinking about putting the electricity in my name and having them pay the electricity to me. That way, we don't have any power in their name. They could stay there without paying me. I would go ahead and have the electricity. But that would probably do the same thing. Vent-free heaters, I don't know why more people don't do it. I think some of it is a fear that it's going to kill me because it's going to suck up all the oxygen in the house. Vent-free heaters have had since the 70s oxygen depletion sensors in them. So nobody's ever died from that. Yes, that's a good idea. Now I want to get back to go beyond and maybe say, I'll give you a scenario. Say the person who moved into a house to own for himself, he moves in, he said, I'm going to rent this house and we're going to move into another one. That would mean the same investment ideas and thoughts would go from that person who bought the house originally, and he's doing the same thing as the person who's buying the house separately. Except that you did the work yourself or you hired it as you could afford it done. Now, the final one, can I buy a mobile home, double wide, single wide, to buy it, fix it up, and then sell it? Yes, you can. It is a good investment if you do the math. If they're asking too much for it, and you're going to have to spend the money that we've been talking about, all these different areas, you're going to have to spend money on things that we talked about that you shouldn't do in rentals. Like you would be putting carpet in there. You would be putting in a washer and dryer and refrigerator. What I have seen done in houses and mobile homes is I have seen them use rental furniture and rental refrigerator and such until that house sells. But you're going to use softer materials, things that are nice and comfy, curtains and things you're going to have to provide. Whereas a rental, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't put carpet in it. It's not a good idea. But if you're selling it, nobody's going to mess it up until you sell it. Yeah, you can do those things, and that'll make it more attractive. Again, in real estate, curb appearances, everything. I mean, they say the first 3 rules of real estate is location, location, location. After that, it's curb appearance, and then it's kitchen. So if you're selling, your curb appearance is fantastically important. How much money are you going to spend on that house to make it look good when you pull up to it? That's where the woman is going to be focused, what it looks like. And then the next thing she's going to be focused on is what does the kitchen look like? Okay? The rest of it's going to be, how does the house look, and how am I have to do a whole bunch of rearranging how I think I'm going to live. You're going to have to get used to those things. But you can sell that property. You're going to have to spend a different type of budget. You're going to spend more money on carpet, maybe buy cabinets if the cabinets have been abused, and you're going to find softer colors to paint, and maybe up-to-date exterior paint, make it look good, a nice deck, a gravel driveway. Do all those things that make that house look really nice, just like you would in a regular house. Can you make money? Yes. Is it a good investment? Yes. You have to do the math. You can't just say, oh, it's got 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and let's go ahead and see if we can sell it like this. You're going to have to spend some money. And I can go on and on about what each individual thing will cost. But, if you're thinking about 70 grand just to get one there, and then you got to hook the utilities, and you don't own the land when you buy that mobile home for 60 or 70 grand. Think about it. There's a lot of area that you can invest your money and have a return. And then look around there, see what double wides and single wide mobile homes have been selling for. What did they look like? Those are things that are going to tip you toward investing. You can change the siding. If it has metal siding, you can change it to vinyl. If you have metal siding, you can change it to hardy board. If you have masonite, you can take that off. You can go over the top of it with vinyl siding. Those are all things you can do to make that house look more like it would be presentable to sell. Buying a mobile home park. That is something that I've had discussions with several people. I actually do work for a gentleman that has 2 in this area, and he has 2 more in Little Rock, which is 4 hours away. You need to know the math in that also. You need to know how long, if it's got natural gas in it, you need to know how long ago that cast iron pipe or that threaded pipe was put in the ground, and kind of an idea of how long it's going to be before you have to replace it. So if it's been 30 years ago when they put the natural gas lines in, you better be looking at putting a budget together to replace those gas lines at some point, because those pipes will be rusting, leaking, and you're going to end up having to fix them. Water lines, something similar. You may end up, usually water lines can hold up. If they did it in PVC, which if they did 30 years ago, before PEX, you're going to end up replacing that PVC at some point. Maybe a little at a time. But those are things that you look at. Now, there's one other thing you need to understand. That in certain states, you can't raise the rent just because you bought it. You need to make improvements to that property before you can raise the rent. So what is it you can do? You can put curbs along the gravel roads. You can pave those gravel roads and pave the parking areas. You can plant flowers. You can put in a fountain. You can do like a playground, which has its own liabilities. People can get hurt there. You could put in a storage area, and all of a sudden that property's worth more because the storage area is right across from where you live. You could put in a washateria. Now they don't have to drive very far into town, because a lot of times campers and mobile homes don't always have their wash machine yet. They're starting off. So I'm going to tell you this. I think more and more people are going to be looking to move into campers and mobile homes. If you don't, in this area, there's a lot of people living in portable buildings that have been turned into small homes. And some of those small homes go up to 30, 40,000 easy, maybe higher. But most of them start around 20, 13, 14, sometimes where you want to finish it up. So young people now are not going to be able to afford a $300,000 $400,000 house or a $490,000 house. They're going to have to find a place that they can go that they can afford. I suggest to you that we're going to see more of a demand for used mobile homes and campers than ever before. It's already here. So, is it a good investment to buy? Yeah. If you know what you brace up for what it's going to cost, do the math of what that is. Are you paying too much for it to begin with? Need to look into that. How much work has got to be done? Now, I gave you a lot of tips. You can always check in other people's information on YouTube and so on, and they will give you tips also. All those things are part of your equation figuring out your investment. But I promise you, from my own experience, you can definitely invest in mobile homes and come out very strong. Just do the math. I hope I've got everybody's answer. I can keep on talking. If you have any other questions or things like that, go ahead and leave that in the comments or whenever we do this on Saturdays.
Email.
Yeah, you can email.
Comment on any of our videos because I check the comments. I'll collect the questions.
Hopefully, I've given you enough information to get a good grip on what I think. Everybody has an opinion. I work on them. I work on houses also. I work on restaurants. So work on high-end houses. I work on commercial buildings. I just adjust my budget to fit what each individual wants me to adjust to. I don't go in and say, hey, we're going to spend $40,000 on a bathroom or a kitchen in a mobile home.
Do you use, he's asking about mobile home windows versus home windows. Mark again.
Okay. You can order the mobile home windows. Most of the time, from 2000 back, they are not dual pane glass. They're like a single pane on the outside, another single pane on the inside with a space in between. It's like it's a cheap way to do a charged glass conventional window. What do? Generally, I try to put in house type windows. If they're on a budget, you can order those vinyl windows for houses to go in the hole. Now you need to make sure when you measure the inside of the window that it's not built up a half inch on each side. If it is, you're going to have to be that much wider. And yes, you can. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to get a vinyl window ordered quite often. You can get it done quicker. So yes, I would definitely encourage you to get away from the mobile home windows because they end up sweating on the inside in between those windows, and the bottom of those windows are all rotted out. The paneling they use to clean it up is all rotted out, and it's because the temperature difference between the inside of that glass and the outside of that glass is different, and that causes condensation. The condensation goes to the bottom of the window, rots out the sill. If you have you can do it on any type of vinyl siding, metal, or masonite. You can do that. You can put a house top window. You just got to get the inside measured properly. Don't measure from the outside, measure from the inside, so you know what. And make sure you know how thick. If sometimes it's just a little piece of paneling, that's fine. You can measure to that. But if it's a piece of drywall around it, some 3/8 drywall, you got 3/4 wider. And they just bump the drywall up against it. So you need to look into that. And then you're going to stick that window right in there, and then fasten it and seal. Yeah, I would definitely. Everything I do on mobile homes, I tend to use house type stuff. It's a house type door, house type windows. I try to put those in. If they're if it's an older couple or somebody on a real budget, I encourage them to go find a window at Habitat for Humanity is one of the places around here. They have people donate windows to them. Go get a window, and I'll literally change the shape of the window, usually larger, and I'll put that window in where that smaller window was. It was all broken, or not very good to begin with. So hopefully that gives you a good answer. You can definitely change your windows, and it certainly helps the value. One of the places I go to, and they give me a good price, is around $150 a window for new windows, 175. That's pretty good. Now, it seems like just yesterday they were at 100 and a quarter. One of the things that you might consider is if you're going to change the masonite or the metal siding, you get that window house ready that has you could have it where it has the gap around the sides to make it vinyl ready. Now you can use that for putting vinyl siding over top of masonite or over top of metal. So that would be where you want a vinyl ready window.
It answered him.
Okay. One of the things you might consider doing too is a metal roof, but that would not be part of. You don't have to do that. It is an upgrade. I'm not sure. It should help on the sale of the house if you're buying or investing in a mobile home to resell. A metal roof would certainly help, and I usually put insulation to protect the roof so that you don't get condensation. Again, we're talking about the difference between one side of the metal to the other. Put a metal roof on. It should improve the value of the home to a bank or to a buyer. For a rental, if you do, I use elastomeric coating and tar first on the edges and clean it all up and get all the loose stuff off, and then I'll use the white stuff to keep everything preserved. You're going to have to do that about every 3 years. So $200 and something for the materials, and I guess the price is going to go up on that. And you're going to have to do that every 3 years plus the labor to do it. But usually the second time you do it, if you do it every 2 or 3 years, it's pretty easy. You got less and less to do each time. Your coat, that elastomeric coating, that white coating that they sell at Lowe's and Home Depot, it really does a good job. But you don't want to go 5 years or something. Well, I had this mobile home all these years and never did any of it. Well, what you did was that it leaked along that that gutter that looks like a little tiny gutter there. It's actually not much of a gutter. What it does is hold that metal roof on, and it leaks beside that and runs down whatever siding you have, which is metal or masonite or vinyl, hits the particle board, and then it wicks back 3 feet sometimes. That water coming down that wall hits that particle board and wicks back. So you are dealing with damage on the inside. You don't even know it. You can't see it, maybe. So seal that roof regularly if you're not going to put a metal roof on it. That would be, if you're going to rent mobile homes, I would consider making a schedule to go in and check things. What things were you talking about? Say, one of the renters, a guy you rented from in Orlando many years ago, I say like 40 something years ago, he says, "Oh, we're going to come in every month and change the air filter." Well, I can do that for you. No, we do that. That's part of our service. The reason they were doing it, they told me later, you can go ahead and do it now. We wanted to see what you were doing to the house, how you were treating our house. There's your reason to go into the house, see how the renter's doing, and to make sure that air conditioner is not being strained / heater by nobody changing the filter. Believe me, I have seen this many times. You have that reason to go into the house to see if the house has got a dog in it that you didn't know about, cats that you might smell when you get in there but you can't see. I've even heard stories of people having potbelly pigs in there, and you didn't agree to them to have that. Well, now you have a reason to go in there. It's in the agreement that you have with them, but you're going to change that filter. So that's part of the maintenance. When you're there, you're going to be looking underneath the sinks, make sure they don't have a leak that they didn't know about. They're never going to tell you, "Oh, I didn't know," is what they're going to say. But that would keep your cabinets from being ruined and the floor being ruined. Now, if you're going to rent also, you might walk around the outside of your skirting looking for that hole that goes underneath, and that's animal, find a warm spot or a cool spot underneath your house. Okay? I've seen it where renters have taken off the skirting in the back of the house to let the dogs in or the cats in. That way they have a dog house they don't have to build. And they get inside the insulation, pull the insulation down on the bottom of the house. I've had to drag dead animals out from underneath the house. I've seen people where they store stuff underneath the skirting. They take the skirting off and slide stuff under, maybe put the skirting back, maybe not. And I've had to pull all kind of stuff under. So you walk around your property because you own it, and you can tell them, hey, if you don't like this agreement, I understand. And you can change that agreement with a writ in writing if you like how they are living. That's your choice. But if you're renting, I would consider that. It's not something you would have to worry about if you're selling that property or if you live there yourself. Only if you're a guy that bought it, invested your time and money into it, and now you got a renter in there that doesn't feel the same way about it as you do. Give yourself a reason to go and check on that property. Just something to consider. If you're going to move a mobile home, check and see what they're charging to move. Check it and see if that ridge beam, that 2x6 that runs around the outside edge at the bottom of the siding, see if it's rotted. If you can reach up in there and feel it wet and soft, when you take that frame off of the blocks, and off the wheel, put it on the wheels, the back end will be nearly dragging on the ground and the front end will nearly be dragging on the ground. Going down the road, that house will pull apart. I worked on a house over near Harrison, which is 2 hours away, hour and a half, 45 minutes, something like that. He said, oh man, that driver, I wouldn't recommend him. I happen to know the driver. He's a pretty good guy. And I looked at the roof and I said, the reason this house fell apart is because, your floors and your ridge beam are all tore up. So going down the road, instead of being fairly straight, it was doing this, and it opened up the roof. So I had to put a metal roof on to fix that. He was very fortunate to get that mobile home in. It looked like they drug the back end coming in. I can tell you that you need to be looking at those things if you're going to move that mobile home, and understand your driver. Make sure that moving company actually has insurance. I'm telling you, I've experienced this one. You can hire them and they don't have insurance. Guess what they do? They have a blowout on the side of the road and they unhook and go because they don't want to be there when the police pull up. Hey, we're holding up traffic. They unhook and go. They leave your home on the side of the road and you don't even know about it. Or how about this? I could tell you a story. They could be towing it, swing the mobile home around, hit a tree, and then tear up the house and maybe tear off the end of the house and leave it in the road. I can tell you a lot more stories. They can be drunk when they went out to see if they can make the route. Make sure you're dealing with a good mover and how much he's going to charge. And I'm telling you, everything that you might plan, there's going to be more to it. There's going to be more expense, more time than what you thought. All right. You guys think of anything else you want to talk about? Let me know, and we'll have another subject next Saturday. Hopefully we'll be better at what we're doing here.
And we'll schedule it. I'll have it scheduled earlier in the week with the topic, whatever.
She's going to do the
decide.
scheduling. She does all this electronic stuff.
I kind of dropped the ball this time.
Yeah, we're learning. So what I'm trying to do, and I want to explain something. I did not go into YouTube to make money. It happens that we make a little bit. I think she's making
$600.
$500, $600. She's worked for 3 years, probably 100 hours a month. Now, it's not the reason that I got into doing YouTube. What happened was I was outliving my customers. The customers I dealt with early on, they were maybe in their 50s or 60s, and now 30 years later, they're not living in mobile homes. They're maybe in nursing homes and they may not be living. So I knew that I was outliving my customer base, and I was going to have to deal with more and more people who didn't know me. It's like, oh, I can used to be able to show pictures of this is pictures of all the things I've done, so you don't have to take my word for it. That's what YouTube is doing for me early on, is that I could show people on YouTube me actually doing it, not faking it until I make it, but actually doing it, so they can actually be dealing with somebody and get to know me kind of personality. I didn't realize that part of it. They get to know my personality a little bit.
You even tried to get rid of your personality on a lot of it. And both me and Clay have been telling you to stop that.
Yeah, I need to be a little more like myself, I guess, instead of stoic or dry. What I do want you to know is that I actually like people.
A lot.
I have enjoyed my time with people. And what I'm seeing now is that I get to help other people and that's what I tell myself as a repairman. In order to get more energy, I tell myself it is my job to make other people's lives better. And if I go at it from that angle, then I'm not doing it to rob them of whatever money I can get them for. I'm coming at it from a different perspective. How can I make these people happy? I had a guy that I've been doing work for a long time. He owns 2 motels. He said, I need you to come over and look at this, Phil. So it was a motel that had a grinder pumps down in this tank and it pumps it out. And he says, when I turned it off, it goes pump, 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 pump. You know, I was like, yeah, it is kind of clunking. There's nothing wrong with your pump station. There's nothing wrong with your grinder pumps. But I do hear that. And I was like, turn your pump on again? I turned the pump on. And it ended up being that the check valve was just leaking a little bit. It was you pumped the sewer through, and then when it came back, it would kind of chunk, 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 and then quit. I said, well, I don't think that's a problem. Okay, don't worry about it. It's not going to be a big issue. He says, well, I've got the place sold, and I don't want to sell it to somebody. Lightning hit over there across the street and did a whole lot of things and messed up our computers a little bit and things like that. I didn't know, maybe I had to replace something. I said, no. He said, well, the other guy said, that you needed this and I need that. And I was like, well, is it working? He says, yeah. Well, then you don't need to replace it and you don't need to fix anything here. And I had only been there 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes max. And he goes, oh, that's a relief. What do I owe you? I said, no, I'm not going to charge you. I was already over here. So that's who I am. I have to make money to pay my bills. I have to do things like that. But I do like people, and I want everybody to be better. And I think it would be great if everybody could help one another through YouTube, even if it's just encouragement. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with YouTube now. It is a good resume. If you want to know if I can do it in this area, well, I've been to Colorado twice. Hey, Roger. I don't really want to go to Colorado all the time, but he was a great guy. I'm glad I got to meet him, and we did metal roofs on a rounded roof mobile home. I like people, and I want to keep living that way, and I want to try to make other people's lives better. And that's what I'm doing now. I make more money in one day than what YouTube pays for 1 month. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm charging too much. It just means I work long hours and I get the job done. This is not about money. This is about I care about people. And I wish you guys all the best. Come up with any other questions, I'll be happy to answer. See you next Saturday. Don't even want to turn it on.